Welcome back everyone to my YouTube series on how to create a PC gaming console. If you haven't seen parts 1 or 2, then I recommend watching those episodes first. Links are in the description below. In the last episode, we looked at Steam's in-home streaming as an alternative to building a fully functional standalone PC gaming console. Today, we're going to talk about the parts that I chose for my living room home theater and gaming console PC. The image on the left are the components that I selected for this build. The full parts list is in a link in the description of the video. Let's start by talking about the most important part of the build to me, which was the case. I went with the Fractal Node 202 right here, really just because it's the smallest case that I could find that was able to use standard full-size components. It is really nice that the case also comes with a 450 watt slimline power supply. It was really important to me that the computer not look out of place if it's in a TV stand. In this particular case, looks like it fits perfectly alongside a stereo or other television components. You can see that the case is slightly bigger than an Xbox One, but it's much larger than a PS4. As for the actual guts of the system, I went ahead and went with a Skylake i5 6500 processor, along with an aftermarket Silverstone CPU cooler. I picked up the cheapest ASRock motherboard that I can find, along with the cheapest DDR4 memory that I could find. I also snagged a Zotac GeForce 970 graphics card, along with a single 120mm case fan, as well as a 4TB hard drive. Okay, so here's where things get a little kooky. The Node 202 doesn't support a 3.5-inch hard drive. You can only use solid state drives. But solid state drives are crazy expensive when you start talking about terabyte and multi-terabyte size drives, which I really need for this system because I want to put lots of emulators, lots of games, lots of PC games. I want something in the range of 2, 3, 4, 5 terabytes of space. So it was really important for me to use a 3.5-inch hard drive. Well, I had a stroke of genius, or what I thought was a stroke of genius at the time, where I concocted this idea of Velcroing a 3.5-inch hard drive into one of the 120mm fan intakes, as you can see here. I mean, the graphics card already has two 80mm intake fans, and there's a 120mm intake fan feeding those fans. What could possibly go wrong, right? So we can see here, here's the system fully built out, where I've got the 120mm case fan pulling in cool air from the outside. And then this graphics card on the front has got two 80mm fans, which is taking the air coming from the larger fan and then blowing it over the chips on the GPU and cooling off the GPU. Over to the right-hand side, where you would expect to see a second 120mm fan, is where I decided to mount this hard drive. And here's the system all put together, standing in an upright position. And then here's my office television, office setup that I use to test things out and to get the initial configuration done. And then you see here, which you might recognize from video 1, where the system's fully set up in the living room and we're using it to play our games and watch our movies and everything. Well, here's kind of the big scenario that I ran into. So within the first week or so, we started to notice that the system fans were really loud when playing games like The Witcher 3 or Rise of the Tomb Raider. And I mean really, really loud, like NASA rocket launch loud. And the case was hot, really, really hot. Like you could probably fry an egg on it hot. So to try to figure out what was going on here, I started running HW monitor in the background to get some analysis of the state of the system. And in this screenshot, you can see that the graphics card is reaching 90 degrees Celsius. Okay, there was even one point where the temperature actually exceeded 100 Celsius, which is crazy, crazy hot temperatures. So I went to NVIDIA's 970 documentation website, and I found that the maximum GPU temperature for a 970 chipset should be 98C. That's the absolute upper level threshold of what the card can sustain and before it starts throttling and failing to a certain extent. So clearly we've got a heat problem. So I ended up having to take the system apart and go ahead and mount an additional 120 millimeter intake fan where that hard drive was previously being mounted. The trouble is, where do we put that 3.5-inch hard drive? The case is very small and there really isn't anywhere to mount a hard drive in the case. Yeah, I mean, we can't just Velcro the hard drive to the fan. So I ended up rummaging through some stuff in my toolbox and I found some drywall sinks that I ended up using for this. So I ended up seating the drywall sinks into the fan screw holes to create a raised platform for the hard drive to sit on. And then I used some Velcro along the sides and some spare wire to tie a harness around that hard drive to get everything securely mounted. You can see here I've got the hard drive sitting on the drywall sinks, and the side of the hard drive is actually Velcroed to the side of the case. Clearly, this solution is probably not ideal for most people, and you certainly wouldn't want to set this in the upright position anymore once you've done this. But it's really important to me to get that hard drive in there, and I was pretty much done spending money. I didn't want to have to spend any more money, so this is the solution I ended up going with. So we can see here from the side profile there, I ended up taking some spare wire and fashioning a harness. And then along with the Velcro and the sinks there, I've got everything securely seated. So after having done this and putting everything back together, rerunning the tests and letting the HW monitor run in the background, and then now we're seeing a case where, the GPU never exceeds 80C. The fans, they never spin up, past 45% utilization. The system runs cool and quiet. And if you touch the case, it's no longer hot to the touch. Everything is nice and cool. So if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably just use 4 512 gigabyte SSDs. So I'd have 2 terabytes of storage, maybe even 2 1 terabyte SSDs, rather than going with a 4 terabyte mechanical hard drive. But hey, in the end, it worked out, and everything is good to go. So aside from a few snags, like the hard drive scenario, and only putting in the one 120 millimeter fan instead of 2, we've got those issues all worked out, so we're pretty much good to go. So just wanted to share some of the experiences that I had with this particular system that I built. I hope you enjoyed the video. The next video, we're going to focus on setting up the software to create the user interface and everything that you need for the couch, home theater, and PC gaming. So talk to you later.